Okay, so are you ready for a deep dive today?
Oh, yeah. Always ready. Hit me.
All right, well, today we're diving into something that's a real puzzler.
Okay, I like those. Lay it on me.
So we got this really intriguing little snippet of text, and it just says, create convection on life, village, and city.
Hmm.
That's it.
Wow, that's like, what is that? Like a fortune cookie or something.
Right. No explanation, no context or anything, just those few words.
All right, I'm intrigued. Where do we even begin with that?
Well, I was thinking maybe we could start with the word convection.
Okay, yeah,
Like
convect.
usually when we hear that word, we think about like physics, right?
Yeah, like heat and stuff.
Exactly. Heat rising, currents forming, all that.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that apply to villages and cities?
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it? It's kind of like, it's forcing us to stretch our thinking a little bit,
Yeah.
to think outside the box.
Right. Like what could it possibly mean in this context?
Yeah, what kind of convection could you have between those very different worlds, right?
Exactly.
Because, I mean, when you think about villages and cities, you kind of think about them as being opposites in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. So how do we create some sort of flow or transfer between them?
Right. But I think that's the key word there, flow.
Okay, flow.
Like convection is all about movement, right? Things going back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think instead of just getting stuck on people migrating, what if we think about other things that could be exchanged?
Hmm. Interesting. Like what?
Well, there's all kinds of possibilities, right? You've got knowledge, resources, cultural practices, all sorts of things.
That's a good point. It's not just about physically moving people, it's about facilitating a dynamic exchange.
Exactly.
So it's like a two-way street.
Exactly, a two-way street.
Okay, so what could that look like in practice?
Well, let's take an example. Something like remote work. Right.
Yeah, remote work.
We've seen this huge rise in people choosing to live in quieter, more rural locations while still participating in the urban economy.
Right. Because technology allows people to work from anywhere.
Exactly.
So they can enjoy the benefits of village life.
Yeah.
Peace and quiet, lower cost of living, all that,
Right, yeah.
but still have access to the job opportunities and the amenities of the city.
Exactly. And that's where things like reliable internet connectivity, co-working spaces in rural areas, that kind of stuff becomes crucial.
Right.
Because if you want to make this kind of flow sustainable, you've got to have the infrastructure to support it.
It makes sense. So in this way, the convection would be the flow of information and work between the city and the village.
Right, exactly.
And what about the flow in the opposite direction?
Hmm.
How could cities benefit from this convection?
Well, think about it this way. Cities are often seen as these hubs of innovation and creativity, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So imagine if we could channel some of that energy and expertise towards solving the challenges that are specific to rural communities.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's like a transfer of knowledge and skills?
Exactly. We could have urban professionals, bringing their skills to village-based projects,
Mhm.
helping to foster entrepreneurship, sustainable development, all sorts of things.
So they'd be kind of like consultants in a way.
Yeah, kind of like consultants, but also maybe even more hands-on.
Okay, I like that.
Like imagine urban architects designing eco-friendly housing solutions for villages or tech experts, setting up digital literacy programs.
That's a great example. It seems like there's so much potential for synergy there.
Right, like both sides have something unique to offer.
Yeah. So it's not just about one taking from the other. It's about a mutually beneficial exchange.
Exactly.
It reminds me of this concept I read about called rural-urban linkages.
Oh yeah, rural-urban linkages.
Some economists believe those are actually crucial for sustainable development.
Right, because you want to have that interconnectedness, right?
Yeah, it's like a symbiotic relationship.
Exactly.
So are there any real-world examples where this kind of integration has actually been successful?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are all kinds of different models out there.
Like what?
Well, for instance, some countries have implemented policies that encourage businesses to relocate to rural areas.
Oh, interesting. How do they do that?
Well, they offer things like tax incentives and infrastructure support, to make it more attractive for companies to move.
Oh, that's smart. So it's kind of like a win-win, right?
Exactly.
The businesses get the benefits of being in a more rural setting, and the rural communities get the economic boost.
Exactly.
Are there any other examples?
Well, yeah. Others have focused on developing something called agritourism.
Agritourism. What's that?
It's basically where urban residents can go and experience village life firsthand.
Oh, okay, like a rural getaway.
Exactly, like a
Right.
rural getaway. And it's great because it boosts local economies, gives people jobs, and also helps foster cultural understanding.
That's fantastic. It seems like there's so many creative ways to bridge the gap between urban and rural life.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty amazing how this one little phrase, create convection, has sparked such a wide-ranging discussion.
Right, I know. It's pretty wild.
It really challenges us to rethink this traditional divide, between urban and rural life,
Hmm.
and to consider the possibilities of a more interconnected future.
Right, because at the end of the day, we're all part of the same system, right?
Absolutely.
And I think this idea of convection, it really highlights the importance of finding ways to connect and support each other.
Yeah. So even though the phrase itself doesn't give us any concrete solutions, it does leave us with an important question to think about.
What's that?
Well, if we were to actually design a system for this convection, what would we prioritize?
Mm,
What would be the most valuable things to exchange between these two worlds?
that's a great question. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. And it's a question we can all ponder. So, listener, what flows would you create between village and city life to build a more balanced and enriching future for everyone?
Thanks for listening, everybody.
See you next time.